The British Lung Foundation and people affected by the little-known but deadly lung disease IPF are calling for more support and funding to help find a cure for the condition. To talk more about the disease, I'm joined now by Dr Toby Maher from the British Lung Foundation. Dr Toby, tell us a bit more about IPF. What is it?
So idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, or IPF for short, is a condition characterised by progressive scarring of the lung. And with that progressive scarring, people become increasingly breathless. So it tends to start with just mild breathlessness on exertion, but as the condition gets worse, people can do less and less before they run out of breath.
Do we know what causes it?
We don't really know what causes it, and certainly it becomes more common as people get older, so it characteristically affects people in their 60s and onwards. We know that there is a genetic component to it. About 1 in 20 people will have a family member who's already got the condition. We also know that exposure to different sorts of dust seems to be important. So people who've, through their working lives, been in contact with dust, be that metal dust, wood dust, stone dust, seem to be more likely to develop the condition.
And how treatable is it?
Fortunately, in the last 2 or 3 years, we have seen the emergence of treatments which work for the condition. That said, there's absolutely no cure, and the drugs which are now available, although they slow down the progression of the disease, they don't stop it from getting worse. So they help people live longer, but they don't get people back to normal or improve their breathing in any way.
Well, also joining me are Ron Flewett, who has the condition, and Samantha Hillier, whose father passed away from IPF. Ron, first, tell us about your story. How has IPF affected you?
I was originally diagnosed with IPF in April 2014. I'm very surprised at the amount of deterioration of my lungs in the year and a half that I've had the condition. Any slight exertion, I'm very, very much so out of breath.
And day to day, how do you find living with it?
Find living with it very awkward. Just by walking up a flight of stairs, I'm very out of breath at the top. Mowing the lawn becomes, where it used to take me an hour, takes me 2.5 to 3 hours. I have to limit my walking. Whereas I used to go for 5 or 6 mile walks, I now can only manage a mile or 2. I attended pulmonary rehabilitation classes to teach you how to exercise within your new limits. I say new limits because I'm an ex-triathlete and I'm used to competing in events. So for me to slow down and participate at lower levels is very difficult. I participated in the London Ride. I had to retire after 25, 30 miles because I had severe cramp. This was caused to severe low oxygens in my legs. When I was originally diagnosed in April 2014 and being told I had 3 to 5 years to live, I came out of seeing the consultant and there was no information on the disease at all. 2 weeks later, I was very, very depressed, very lonely. I Googled IPF and I found the British Lung Foundation. With the help of the British Lung Foundation, it's become my cause to raise awareness of this terrible unknown disease.
Do you think that you might have contracted it through work somehow?
Yes, I used to work as an air conditioning engineer and I visited many plant rooms throughout my working life. So there's the dust in many of the plant rooms that I've been in may be a cause of my condition.
And have the doctors given you a prognosis?
Doctors gave me a prognosis of 3 to 5 years.
Samantha, I'd like to bring you in. Your father died of IPF. How quickly did his condition progress?
It was really rapid for my dad. He was diagnosed in December 2013 with IPF, and sadly by January the 19th he passed away.
And how else did it affect him in terms of his day-to-day living?
It was so rapid with Dad. Before he had the diagnosis, he was actually, sounds ridiculous, but a very fit and well man. He was doing most things. He just became increasingly breathless, doing simple things like climbing the stairs, climbing up a hill. And so by the time he was diagnosed, his condition deteriorated so quickly that his life was drastically affected by it in the 6 weeks from diagnosis to his death. He went from being able to walk 5 miles a day to not being able to walk across the kitchen without struggling for breath.
Yeah, it's terrible. What are you calling for and how can people help support the cause?
I think the British Lung Foundation do a fantastic job in trying to raise as much awareness as they can, and this week is really important for doing that. For me and for my mum and for other family members, the difficulty with it was that the consultants themselves in the hospital we were treated for my dad, there was very little information available. And I think what I'd like to see is more information being made available to the patients and to their loved ones so that the right treatment can be given. Ron here, for example, has had excellent care from the Papworth Hospital. And the one thing that I'm learning is that the secret with IPF is to actually catch it early to stop the deterioration in the disease. And with my dad, it wasn't caught early, and so it deteriorated rapidly for him, hence he died very quickly.
Just on that point, Ron, what sort of treatment are you having at the moment?
I was extremely lucky. I was referred from Peterborough Hospital to Papworth. I'm under a multidisciplinary team. I'm receiving one of the latest drugs called pirfenidone. So I consider my pathway on this illness to be extremely lucky at the moment.
How much funding does IPF receive compared to other diseases?
Unfortunately, IPF receives tiny amounts of research funding, and certainly if you compare it to diseases which kill as many people a year, say leukemia for instance, IPF gets a tiny fraction of the amount of research funding that goes into cancers and other similar diseases. In terms of the benefit of research funding, one only has to look at how survival has improved dramatically for many cancers over the last 20 years, and yet over the same time period there's been absolutely no improvement at all in survival for people diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. So I think there's an urgent need to get more research funding so that we can learn more about the condition and ultimately find much better treatments.
Where can people go if they want to find out more about IPF?
So if people want to find out more, they should go to the British Lung Foundation website, blf.org.uk. If people are on social media, then they can join in the Twitter debate at #ICareAboutIPF, and they'll find both important discussion on the disease but also helpful links there where to find more information.
Ron Flewett, Dr Toby Maher and Samantha Hillier, thank you all for your time.